2. Well, we're at that point now, Matt, where that is a very high possibility. And I'm not talking about SmackDown, I'm talking about Raw, actual Monday Night Raw that has been going for so long. Their flagship show has just, it doesn't matter what they're doing, Matt. And we're talking at a time post WrestleMania. I mean, this is one of the booming times. Even building towards WrestleMania, Raw has been extremely disappointing in terms of ratings. Where have those fans gone? We do not know. But just to give a few facts here before we get into a discussion, but a few facts on the ratings, because I have them in front of me here, and I also have them up against 2017 as well, so I can kind of just to put things in perspective a little bit here. But I mean, okay, so the last one I've got here was the 6th for the 5th Raw, which did slightly go up by 76,000 people, slightly, but still only garnering a 2.2 on that one. Now, the week before that, it was down at 2.1, which was one of the lowest ever, and that is, I mean, that's taking into consideration people that have, recorded it as well. So it's not just live on the night. There's people that are going to record it and watch it another time. So that is still significantly low. So I mean, God knows what it was actually watching it live. Might have been a lot less. Now, the highest it's been this year, realistically, was, I think there was an episode, I think it was the 11th of the 3rd, we had a 2.8. But since then, it has been declining quite considerably. Yes, the show after WrestleMania got a 2.9, which is kind of expected in a lot of ways because it is the night after WrestleMania. But since then, it lost, a week later, over 250,000 fans in one hit. And then a week later from that, it's 2 weeks later, it's lost 500,000. 3 weeks later, it's lost 750,000 fans. And then we've just gone up 76,000, as I've said. So that is the sort of numbers that is dropping off at the moment. And believe me, 76,000, it's okay, but it's not got 750,000 back, has it, Matt? For this stuff. And when we look at SmackDown at the minute, because people, will often look at that. I mean, the last couple of weeks of that, 1.9 and a 1.8. And they're all in that region. And to put things in perspective, TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever you want to call them these days, but when they were on Spike, they were doing those kind of numbers. I mean, it's ridiculous to think, Matt, but they were pulling those numbers in. They were doing 1.8s and 1.9s. And, people at the time were thinking they'll never catch WWE. Now, that's what WWE are doing on a weekly basis. I mean, there's no cure and there's no right answer to this, and we don't run the business. So I know it's easy for us to sit here and, talk about it, and there's plenty of people are. But Matt, there's got to be a time where, I know they've got rid of some writers, and maybe they think that's the problem and all the rest of it. But is there sort of a few things, Matt, that you think really is the reason this whole thing is declining the way it is? And why are people dropping off now, Matt, and not, we're used to seeing numbers at least in the 4 to 5 million mark. What has happened to those fans, Matt? And a few of our listeners, they actually said it's ever since that network came along, it's damaged everything in some respects, because it's only tailored for the real people that are always going to be WWE, but it's not done anything to get those sort of common, the sort of just the common fan, or person that's just going to tune in and maybe think, yeah, I'll give this a go. The casual fan seems to have been lost. Is there a few things you could sum it up, Matt, why this rating's deteriorated and we've lost fans?
Yeah, there are a few things like that. I mean, I guess having the network does make it, in some ways, harder for fans to access, because it used to just be on TV. You could just pick it up if you felt like it, just press the button and it would come on. But now, if you have it on the network, you have to search out the network, you have to download the app, then you have to you'd sign up for a month and whatever you're going to do. And even if you just catch it around a friend's house, there's no way that WWE can keep track of that. There could be a lot more people watching, but they could be like, I don't want to pay for that, I'll just go to my friend's house and watch it. And then, they could have twice as many fans, but they wouldn't have any way to track that. So I guess, there's many things like that, and it must be a stressful time for them. I mean, there was that tweet that someone had sent out about how Vince McMahon was ruining the company, and then even Triple H likes it. I mean, that's some deep level stress there. That's blame shifting thrown around, and I guess so it is going to be a hard thing to recover from for them. But they've done it before. They always push forwards. I'm kind of disappointed that they haven't really thrown anything out there in desperation. I mean, they used to not be afraid to shake things up. I know they had the shake up and whatever, but it's not really changed anything. No. I mean, we look back in history and when things weren't doing so great, they bring up some superstars, and then all of a sudden you have the Shield, and then wow, there's the future. We're going to go with these guys and carry them forwards and make some big stars. But they're just not really trying anything like that. I mean, I look at NXT and I see people like the Undisputed Era, and I'm thinking, wow, 4 incredibly talented guys. They could do amazing things in the main roster, but they're not going to get given a chance. And I fear for them that if they do come up, that they will just waste them. And I guess a lot of people are disappointed, and they are probably tuning out because it's happened so many times now when there's been someone. Even if you look like Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and they brought them up, and you thought they were going to do well. I mean, they give them an initial little boost, but then it just fizzles out. And for hardcore fans of these wrestlers, it's so disappointing. I guess people are just getting bored. And also, for people like me and you, and a lot of other people listening to this right now, you can probably describe yourself as a lifelong wrestling fan. And, life catches up with people. People about our age now want to settle down, have a family. They've probably got their kids stuff on TV, and they probably don't have time to put the wrestling on in the night time, or unless they're going to watch it with their family. But not everyone's going to be into it. Maybe their wife said, "Don't put that crap on."
Yeah, I think those fans are, they're an old breed. In fact, today when I was out and about, I took a photo of a guy, sent it to Matt, of wearing a D-Generation X retro top in front of me, and I was thinking, blimey, you think it was only a couple of years ago. Of course it was. I mean, this stuff was happening in '99, and where's the last 2 decades of that going to be? I mean, am I going to see somebody in 10 years' time wearing Roman stuff or whatever else is about these days? I don't.
Orange John Cena t-shirt.
Exactly, but I mean, Austin 316, DX, those kind of, they're still seen today. I mean, I see people out, there are a lot of older people that they were there, and it goes to show. NWO as well is another one, but yeah, I mean, that's in the 90s. I mean, we've had 2 decades almost since then, and it's very. I mean, I'll give it to John Cena. I think you'll probably see that, but very few and far between since then, or things that will catch on and be a part of something or a moment that people will draw back to. But like Matt said, I think he's spot on. I think we going to throw the old usual chestnut in. I think the show is too long. 3 hours is just a nightmare. I heard that last week they had to put in more commercials because they were losing money unless they put more commercials on, which is just ridiculous. But that's where they're at the minute. I just think 3 hours every week. I don't care how deep the roster is, and it is deep. It's the deepest it's ever been, right? It's the deepest it's ever been. I'll give you that. It's probably the most athletic it's ever been as well. But I tell you what, they don't have that they did have back then, because the Attitude Era they probably had the size of an NXT roster, Matt, back then, for the entire roster, right? But back then they had guys that were over, and I don't see that as much these days. I don't see guys that are over with the fans. I really don't. Yes, there are of course a few, and they have been a few for a long time, but I do not see them as they were. I see a lot of 50-50 booking, which is dreadful. Doesn't help anybody get over, and I think the selling of late from some of the guys, I don't know what is going on there, but that, I mean, you watch, I know you haven't seen it this week, Matt, but Raw, the final match, Braun Strowman, I mean, the way he reacts at the end, gets up and does something, it's just ridiculous to me. And the art of selling has almost been gone. I mean, I was listening to Bob Holly on a podcast earlier on my way back, and he was talking about, well, you know, when he thought Jericho was one of the best guys backstage for putting a match together, and he said it's something that's missing now, because it was about, if you were going to get the win, in order to get the win, you make your opponent look as good as they can be, so that it puts you over against somebody, you know, amazing. But that kind of thing has been completely lost now, apparently, he was saying. And that was the days he was there, the last few, you know, years. So God knows what it's like now. I mean, I suppose, Matt, when we've done our WrestleLine stuff before, if we ever read, you know, we go back and we dive things, you know, when ratings were bad, Matt, I mean, we done one on Diesel, and remember, he got the real brunt of it just being champion, Matt. I mean, he was the blame was on him. You're not putting enough people in the seats, you know, you're not getting house show attendances, we're not getting ratings, so it's Diesel's fault. That sort of mindset, Matt, that doesn't happen now, does it? Because it's the titles mean so little at the moment. I mean, I really mean that. I think both champions, I'm telling you, any champion at the moment means so little that I don't, you know, because I know people will probably go, well, it's Seth Rollins, he's not got over enough, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it doesn't matter who you put there, because the business isn't like that anymore. Yes, it was all about the main event. It was all about one guy. But nowadays, there are so many titles, and they don't put, like, even though Seth Rollins is champion, Matt, I think we can both, or most people can see, that Roman Reigns is still their guy. Doesn't matter who's wearing a belt. I think we kind of know that. So it's almost like we're not going to believe it anyway. And I just don't think they have the same outlook. I mean, we go back on Bret Hart, you know, there was politics about, I want to keep that belt, I'm not jobbing to him. I don't think, Matt, those conversations happen too many times now. I don't think anybody argues that. I think everyone's just there to be a part of a show. I think everyone just plays a part, rather than having that sort of individual mindset, which back in the day could have been considered as not a team player. But at the same time, Shawn Michaels, you know, he certainly wasn't a team player, and he played politics, Matt, but it certainly brought the best out of the business as well, didn't it? I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin, those guys. Do you think it's a case, Matt, where a lot of the roster is afraid to kind of challenge stuff at the moment, and, you know, that's why that doesn't happen? Or is it just the culture we're living in?
You know, I think since those kind of days, the company's just continued to grow and grow and grow, and it's so huge now. I mean, if people back in the 90s were afraid that if they spoke up, someone was going to take their spot, now there's easily 5, 6, 7, 8 times as many guys waiting to take that spot if you speak up and you step out of line. I mean, and if you do step up and speak out of line, you've got to be prepared to back it up, and that's what we saw what happened with Neville, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. He wasn't prepared to drop the Cruiserweight title and look stupid and damage his credibility, and, you know, he stuck by what he said, and then he just sort of waited his contract out. And again, you know, we're seeing it with people like Sasha Banks and everything. She's not happy, of course, with where she is in the company. So if you're going to speak your mind and say that, you've got to be prepared to sort of sit on the sidelines and just sort of stand your ground.
Yeah, and I'll say another thing as well. Okay, so it's widely reported now that Revival are not re-signing. So, you know, what are WWE doing? They're still putting them on TV, but they're going to punish them the sacrifice of their audience. They're going to make them look as stupid as possible, but they're going to put them on TV. They're going to use airtime to do this crap. That sort of thing would never happen back in the day. Yeah, you might do it backstage, but you certainly wouldn't put them through this, and just as a way of sort of punishment, maybe setting some sort of example. I don't know what they're doing, but those things, I mean, it's just such a bad idea, and I think most people can see through it. In a time where everybody is up on everything these days, it is